The first pro with the Audi Q8 is how quiet and smooth this vehicle is. This is a base model, premium trim level Q8, and the only option that it has is the convenience package. So we don't have here the double pane glass, but even still, out on the highway, this SUV is very quiet indeed. Steering is nice and smooth, very effortless, and easy to drive as well, especially since we have excellent visibility. That's another pro. It's easy to see out of this, easy to park, no issues. But a con that I've noticed driving this particular SUV, it's going to be with the ride quality and the suspension. I'm not going to completely blame this vehicle because I feel like there's just something that happened with the manufacturing process. Maybe this is a defective model. In the past, I've had a phenomenal experience with many Audis, okay? Even the hardcore RS7 that I tested rode like an S-Class Mercedes. So this being a flagship from Audi, I expected a lot more. It's just a really broken ride quality. Whenever I go over bumps, it feels like it's just crashing over the bumps. Not a very refined experience. We do have here adaptive suspension. I did notice a difference by putting this into the comfort mode, but still it's not where it needs to be in terms of ride quality. Many people would blame the 21-inch wheels. It's not the wheels, okay? I just test drove a Macan last week with 21-inch wheels and it rode amazing and it handled amazing. Modern day suspension technology has come a long way, so the massive wheels aren't the issue. These hand-cooked Dynapro tires, they do suck, so that's not helping things either. When you go over broken roads, it genuinely feels like you're driving on run-flat tires, even though they're not. They're just regular all-seasons, but they feel worse than some of the run-flats I've tested. So there's a lot of things contributing to its broken ride quality here. If you're an owner of a Q8, let us know your thoughts regarding how the Q8 rides. Okay, this part of the video is very important. After I got done testing this Q8, the very next week I checked out a 2022 Audi Q7 in pretty much the same spec as this Q8, okay? It had the turbocharged V6 engine putting out 335 horsepower, 369 pounds-feet of torque, and that Q7 was absolutely flawless. Didn't have a single issue with it. It rode perfectly. I forgot what tires it had, but there was hardly any tire noise with it. It didn't have the double pane glass, but it was still very quiet. Just nothing to complain about with that particular Audi Q7. And it had double the mileage that this Q8 had. It had 10,000 miles and this Q8 had around 5,000 miles. And just so you know, these vehicles are like rental cars. I actually paid to review these vehicles. So the way these previous drivers treat the cars, it's going to be all over the place. Some people are going to be putting regular fuel into these SUVs when they're supposed to take premium, and their driving styles are just going to be whack for the most part. That's what I'm saying. This Q8, this particular model that I got to test, I don't want to let that deter any future Q8 shoppers from purchasing this SUV because I do think this is a great product. I would personally be really happy with it if the few issues I talked about here got ironed out, you know, with the ride quality, if it had slightly better tires on it, and also with the drivetrain. That was going to be the next point I was going to make. That was my next con with the Audi Q8 that I tested. There was just a lot of lag and transmission lag as well. Every time I would take either a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn and I had the wheel cocked and I floored it, it didn't matter what mode I had it in, there was always like a 1 second delay before the car got up and accelerated. Whereas the Q7 I tested, it's not a sporty vehicle. It wasn't exactly designed for performance. It's the more utilitarian version of the Q8. But I had no issues with the drivetrain. I had the car in its auto mode for the most part. I didn't have to put it in the dynamic mode, and every time I floored it in the Q7, the vehicle just got up and it went. No problems. So I hope you understand now why I don't really think the Q8 is a bad car. I don't want to let my particular experience with this rented vehicle kind of deter you from buying it. Literally every Audi I've driven has been perfect. Actually, I've driven multiple throughout the years, some with higher mileage, kind of used vehicles, no issues with it. And let this be known as well, Audi is not the only vehicle to blame. Actually, the most amount of inconsistencies that I've noticed with cars is actually with the Lexus brand. You know, the brand that everyone likes to worship, and they like to pretend like every Lexus is handmade by the cherubs in heaven. Yeah, that brand. Okay, I will give you the perfect example. I drove 3 brand new Lexus LS500s, and if you don't know what the LS500 is, it's the flagship sedan that Lexus makes, the most expensive sedan that they make. Costs anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000. Very expensive car. 2 out of the 3 that I test drove, it felt like you were in a wind tunnel. There was so much wind noise with them, and nobody has an explanation for it. Obviously, I had all 4 windows closed, the moonroof was closed, AC was either turned off or put to a very minimal setting for audio purposes. Literally 2 brand new LS500s were so loud. But the 3rd one I test drove, it was absolutely silent. Same thing with the previous generation LS460s. I drove a 2013, no problem. But I drove a newer 2017 LS460, and that car had the same wind noise problems, just all over the place. And don't get me started with the GS350 sedan. I drove like 7 of them, and 2 absolutely sucked, and like the other 4 or 5 were great. Actually, one of the GS350s felt very sluggish, very slow in regard to how the engine and the transmission felt, but then I drove a super high mileage one with over 200,000 miles, and that car was flawless. It accelerated perfectly fine, felt quick, no shifting problems, just all over the place. So what is the key takeaway here, and what am I trying to say? No 2 cars, even if it's from the same manufacturer, is going to be perfect. That goes double for the used car market, but even with new cars, there can be issues. And keep in mind, the post-pandemic vehicles, I'm not saying this as a fact, I'm just saying this allegedly and supposedly, you know, after the pandemic happened with all the chip shortage nonsense, you know, we don't know what kind of corners some of these manufacturers have been cutting. Certainly something to keep in mind, but most importantly, what you can do as the consumer is do a thorough test drive of any vehicle that you're going to buy, okay, used or new. You feel like it's common sense stuff, but some people, you know, just because they buy a new car, a lot of people are ordering new cars, right? They're not really test driving them. Once the vehicle arrives, or if it's one that's sitting on a dealership lot, do a thorough test drive. Even if you're doing an out-of-state purchase, go out there, take the sales guy with you. He'll probably know the area pretty well. Go through some really bad bumpy roads. Drive it on the highway, do some good speeds in it. You know, try and accelerate really hard in the different modes. Make sure the engine and the transmission are reacting the way that it's supposed to. Some subtle lag is fine, that's normal, but when you're constantly being flat-footed in the car, that's not right. And also, check out the suspension, put it in the different modes, see how that's performing, all right? I initially thought about removing these Audi Q8 videos, but then I thought that's not right. People need to know this, people need to hear about this, that there are inconsistencies with certain products and even these expensive vehicles. You know, we're talking about flagship cars here. Mediocrity is not acceptable in this space. People buy these flagship products for literally perfection. That's the reason why people are shelling out $60, $70, $80, $100,000 on a car. So the good thing is I have proven that the Q7 was perfect. If the Q8 can have a proper, well-tuned and smooth drivetrain like that, with a smoother ride, it will be great, because I hustled the Q8 through some back roads. I loved the handling demeanor and the tank-like quality when it was going down the road. It just felt like a quality product, and it looks amazing as well. So I would personally love to have a Q8. It's just got to be in the right condition and operating perfectly. If you're an owner of a Q8, let us know your thoughts as well as your experiences, and if you've driven multiple Q8s, let me know about your experience as well. But hopefully you can respect the honesty and how in-depth I am going in some of these videos to make the points that I'm making. The interior space, that's a huge pro for me with pretty much every Audi. It feels solid, feels well built, and it looks great as well. I even don't mind this dual screen setup. I think they've done a great job with the haptic feedback for the climate control. It's not even that distracting to me. It's not reflective. It's easy to use. I don't have a problem with that. I enjoy the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That works great. The infotainment looks great. and it's easy to use as well. Same thing with the 12.3 inch gauge cluster. That's standard with every Q8, and that also looks amazing, easy to use. I really enjoy Audi's technology. The doors, when you go to open and close them, they feel nice and solid. Another pro I really enjoy is how safe these Audi products are. A lot of them are IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus models, and you can be rest assured when you're transporting your family around, this is a very safe automobile. And because this is a Q8, this is a much larger SUV, and there's plenty of rear legroom back there. You know, I'm 5'11", I can certainly stretch out back there, plenty of headroom, that's not an issue. So space is a pro. Same thing with the trunk, that's massive, and you can fold down the rear seats if you need even more space. But one thing I don't like about the space is the center armrest. There's not a whole lot of space in here, which is a shame because such a big vehicle. I wish they gave you more armrest space. Glove box is okay though. Another pro is just how amazing this SUV looks. A lot of people are taking notice to it. They're looking at it, and this SUV, it's been out since 2019, but it still looks amazing. I do love this design, and I think it's better than the X6 and the GLE Coupe. I really prefer this, especially from the rear end. Just looks great. The seats in here, it's not a pro or a con. I say that because the seats are very soft, very plush, but the driver's side lumbar support isn't that great. I wish I had more lumbar, so that's just one of the things I noticed. I'll end off on this last pro here, the fuel economy. It's rated to get 18 mpg in the city and 23 out on the highway, but you can pretty easily beat those EPA figures. If you drive this more mellow, you can get 20 mpg in the city and around 26 out on the highway. That's totally possible. So I've noticed that with a lot of Audi products, you can pretty easily beat the EPA figures if you just drive it more chill. And again, this is why it's imperative that I want to hear from owners of the Q8. How is it riding for you? How has it been treating you? Have you had any issues with it? Please let us know how it's been holding up for you. That way you can really help out people in the buying market right now, because there is a value proposition here with the Q7s and the Q8. When you go with the tow package, these SUVs can tow up to 7,700 pounds. That's pretty amazing. So it's a good vehicle to consider. I just want to make sure that other vehicles that people have been driving, owning, testing, that they've been riding really good. So hopefully you found value with this video. Make sure to utilize the resources I have in the description box for you. The AutoCompanion's free leasing calculator. Make sure you play with that, you know, see what the interest rates are like on these leases. Make sure it works out for you. And in general, just check out all their deals. But for now, I'll have the next video on the end screen here. Click on it and I will see you there.